Long Paul, would it be possible I could ask you a few questions?
Certainly.
Okay, one of the first questions I'd like to ask you is how long have you been working in the prison systems for?
I began in 1977, so that's 35 years.
Okay. Um, could you, is there any prison that stands out to you that you've been to?
Oh, well, I've been to most, not quite all, but
Okay.
most. I began in 1977 when we had I'd come back from Thailand and I was staying at Hampstead Police Vihara, and we received a letter from Parkhurst, and we received another letter from Pentonville, and a phone call from Holloway, all asking for someone to visit the Buddhist prisoners. So it was more or less down to me, so I decided to do that, and I've been doing it ever since.
Okay. Could you please tell us the first time you went to the van?
Well, it was quite extraordinary, really. In those days, the railway station there at what's the name of the place now? Weymouth was a wooden railway station, and I remember coming out of the station, and there was this large car and this very large man with dark glasses and standing by it, and as I exited from the station, he said, "Your car, sir?" And I got in the back, and he got in the front, and off we went. And we went down through Weymouth, and then down and across the bridge onto Portland, and then we started, once we got onto Portland, then suddenly we were starting to zigzag up, and it felt like I was in a James Bond film, you know. And then suddenly we turned a sharp corner, and there was a tunnel. Through the tunnel, I thought I was going to see Dr. No or something. And yes, it was quite exciting.
And how long was you working with that prison for?
I can't remember now, but I was a few years. I was going there quite regularly. It was while I was living on the Isle of Wight. I had a small place on the Isle of Wight until 1984, when I came up to this part of the world.
Okay. So, if I could ask you, I suppose, a bit of a personal question, do you think the prison system works?
Well, I mean, what do you expect to get from it, really? It's always been a problem, you know. Society has always had this problem about what to do with people who offend against society, and all sorts of solutions have been tried, like sending people to Australia. I mean, that was one of the better ones, in a way, because at least once they got there, they had a chance to develop their lives, and some of them did very well indeed. But it was a very long way away, and it was a very hazardous journey. That was the trouble. What do you do? It's very difficult. If you isolate people, put them in prison for a long time, then often they become very institutionalized, and then unable to function well when they come out. It's very difficult, because somehow we have to bring to people's attention that what they're doing is unacceptable, and yet somehow we have to give them the opportunity to put things right and live a decent life. And I don't think prison always does that, I'm afraid.
Okay. So, why do you think so many prisoners reoffend?
Well, precisely because they're warehoused, you know, and nothing very much is done while they're in prison to help them. I mean, I personally, although I've been going to prisons all these years, and it's, you know, I'm in and out of prison 3 and 4 days a week. I don't much approve of prisons in a way. If you were to ask me what I want for the future,
Yes.
I would say I'd like to see them all closed. But I think you know, if people are going to be in prison, then that time shouldn't be wasted. and somehow we should encourage people to use the time um, in a good way, so that they learn something, learn skills, trades, whatever, to help them when they come out. When I once went to a prison in Thailand. I've been to a few in Thailand, but one struck me very forcibly. It was the sort of equivalent of a local. And when I went in, they took me into the workshops, and it was quite different there from here. Everyone was working quite hard, and the things they were making were really quite skilled pieces of furniture and quite impressive work. And when we came out, after I'd been shown around the prison, they took me across the road to show me the shop where they sold the produce. And I can't quite remember the proportion, but basically a third of the profit went to the prisoner. Another third went to the prisoner in his hand for him to purchase toiletries and tobacco and whatever. And another third went into a bank account for him. So when he came out after 10 years, or 12 years, or whatever it might be, he had a bank account, and he probably had a skill that he didn't have when he went in. And I thought that was really very sensible, because he came out with a chance of picking up and re-establishing himself.
That sounds really good. So, on a day-to-day basis, what exactly do you do with the prisoners?
Well, when I'm the Buddhist chaplain, so I go in to talk to the Buddhist prisoners and to take a meditation class, usually, much like I do here.
Do you think that a lot of prisoners take up a religion just to get through their time a bit easier?
Well, I mean, people in prison are suffering, aren't they? You know, most people don't much want to be in prison.
That's true.
And sometimes it's a big shock to be deprived of your family contacts and your freedom and all that. And generally speaking, when people find themselves in trouble for whatever reason, they tend to turn to religion. They want some comfort, some solace, and some meaning in their life.
So, I suppose one of the questions that you already answered me, what would you like to see happen in the future about these prisons? Skipping past that, would you think, okay, for example, I can talk about a bit of personal experience here myself, the probation system. For example, I thought that when you come out of prison, the probation system was there to help you get back into society, help with, for example, things like courses, jobs, you know, as I was saying, to get back into society. But I found when I came out myself, probation was nothing like that at all. It was, you know, a place where you turn up to sign forms. For example, you know, they gave me well, not an application, but they gave me a form to fill out. And on the form it asked me questions like, do you think you're going to re-offend again? And when do you think you're going to re-offend again? And I found that quite, you know, hard to deal with, because I thought, because, you know, I thought that this is a place where they're, you know, trying to, you know, motivate you to, you know, do better things, not remind you of negative things. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, and you know, I found that quite difficult when I came home, and I didn't really believe that, you know, the probation system was there for any good purpose at all. That was just my personal opinion. So how do you feel about the probation system?
Well, I've had mixed experiences with the probation service, to be truthful. Like you, I think it ought to be there to give a positive help. I suspect part of the trouble is that it's very overstretched and underfunded. That's what I suspect. I'm not an expert on the probation system, but I think that's probably what's happening. And society and government doesn't usually want to put money into things to do with prisoners or ex-prisoners, and you know it gets a very bad publicity if they do. People start jumping up and down and saying that they haven't got this and they haven't got that, and understandably people are unhappy to see people who've offended being given help that they're not getting.
Yes.
So you can understand that.
Yeah, I can.
But at the same time, you know, society should really, I think, regard funding probation, funding things which help people avoid reoffending as a very sound investment. Because to keep someone in prison is jolly expensive. You know, this is just on a material level.
Yeah.
On a moral level, much more important. You know, it's very important that we help people. When people are down, we should be picking them up. And I don't know about every religion, but you know, the two religions I do know about, Christianity and Buddhism, would say that that's what we should be doing. The person who's down, you pick them up and help them along their way.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Don, for your time, and I appreciate it.